Thanks, Gerlach. Finally, we have a debate, 2.5 hours, on what is the most serious attack on the environmental rights, labour rights, consumer rights, democratic rights of almost 1 billion people. That's how serious the government takes it, because in reality the government is one of the biggest fans of TTIP, one of the biggest fans of the most odious parts of TTIP of all the governments in the European Union. What TTIP is a charter for corporate rights that very consciously places the right of big corporations to profit above the rights of ordinary people to decent wages, to a safe environment, to proper consumer rights. It gives them those rights by giving them the right to sue governments that interfere with their right to profit, but also gives them special access to the writing of regulations so that they're written in their interests. There is free trade between the EU and the US. The average tariffs for imports, for US imports into the EU, is 3.5%, and the other way around is 5%. This is not about free trade in reality. 80% of the so-called estimated benefits come from what are called non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers are those things that the rest of us would call environmental legislation, labour legislation, health, consumer, financial regulations. This is about a race to the bottom of the Atlantic in all of those regulations in the interests of major corporations. And these are not negotiations that are happening between the representatives of ordinary people in the EU and in the US. As John Hillary said, TTIP is correctly understood not as a negotiation between two competing trading partners, but as an assault on European and US societies by transnational corporations seeking to remove regulatory barriers to their activities on both sides of the Atlantic. The big corporations are dominating the meetings with the Commission. 90% of the meetings that the Commission is having with so-called stakeholders are happening with representatives of the big corporations. The way that they'll do it is precisely through the ISDS mechanism. You can rename it whatever you like, but in reality it's a right to sue any government that interferes with the right to profit, with expropriation defined. Well, then they can sue you, as they have been doing under existing agreements in a whole range of extremely controversial cases. The other thing I do want to highlight, because sometimes it's lost in all of the focus correctly on ISDS, is the question of regulatory cooperation, because this is the back door by which they will agree GMOs, by which they will agree chlorine-washed chickens, they will agree hormone-fed beef. They won't sign up for it, first of all, but it's a living agreement. They set up a regulatory cooperation council which is populated by so-called experts who are representatives of the big corporations, and from then on they get a first say in the writing of laws. It's giving corporations to write laws.